Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of LíR Confidential on lirmedia.tv. And our email, if you want to make a comment on any of our shows on our YouTube channel, is info@lirmedia.tv. My special guest today is Mr. Ken Smollen from Tullamore, County Offaly. How do you do, Ken? Welcome along.
Hello, Pat. Thank you very much, and thanks for the invitation to speak on your program.
Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with Ken, he got elected for the first time last year in the last local elections in County Offaly. And Ken, of course, as well, was a member of the Boys in Blue for over 30 years. Now, Ken, what were those 30 years like? Well, obviously, you did more than one sentence, but did you see many changes over those course of those 30 years in the Garda Síochána?
I saw a huge change over those 30 years. I joined the Guards in April 1982, and I retired having my 30 years done in 2012. And but I said it was a completely different job from the one that I had joined 30 years previous to that, with so much red tape and bureaucracy having come in, and too much time spent sitting behind a computer desk, logging different activities that we were at every day. There's not enough policing, and look, I think it went backwards rather than forwards, because a lot of people, a lot of guards retired that had a lot of public knowledge, and they just couldn't take the pressure of this new technology that was supposed to get rid of paperwork, but it actually created more paperwork that had to accompany all of the computer work. I know that the Guards have a bad reputation with a lot of people, but I can genuinely say, Pat, that if I met 1,000 guards, just to put a round figure on it, over my time, I could pick a handful of those who weren't genuine. The vast majority of the members of Garda Síochána that I knew personally were there to do a job. Many, like myself, were there because it was a job. I never had any want or dreams to become a guard. I applied back in 1980 or 81, simply because it was a job, and when jobs were hard to find. But I have to say that I enjoyed almost all of my time in the Guards.
And I think the point you're making is a fair one, and I think we don't hear enough of what we call the good guys and gals voices often enough when things flare up now and again. It's always the bad apple gets the publicity, and as you said, Ken, rightly so, all the other good apples are silent. I don't mean they're silent on purpose, but their voices aren't heard.
Well, there would be silence on purpose, because a member of Garda Síochána cannot go on radio or TV without permission and without asking for permission first to go on. So therefore, you don't hear the ordinary guards on the street, talking about what they think, and just talking about that. As far as I'm concerned, too, Pat, the very best policemen and women that I ever met, and I met some fantastic people who were wonderful at their job. Every one of them was a guard. They weren't promoted, simply because, in order to look for promotion in Garda Síochána, well, look, you need to be playing golf with the chief superintendent, or you need to know the local commissioner well, or the superintendent. So therefore, if you don't want a brown tongue, you're not going to get elected, or sorry, not elected but promoted.
And I think I had some insights into that, being a retired civil servant for my sins, but it's a terrible way that you see talent, and you recognize talent when you see it, and ability and all the positive things. And as you said, they're still a guard 30 years later, which is a pity, really. There's so much.
There's some of the people that I actually knew, Pat, that almost know who Jesus Christ's relations were and what his mother's father worked at, and and these people were all guards, so there are people that actually should have been promoted. and some of them would actually have made fine chief superintendents, even commissioners themselves. But unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. And it's not the way the world works in all aspects of life. You know, you look at the
Yeah.
HSE as well. If you want to know something about what's happening in the HSE, if you want advice, proper advice on the health service and how it can be run properly, ask a nurse on the front line. Don't ask a manager, or don't ask somebody that has been promoted, because you know, these people work on grade 5, grade 6, grade 10. You know, this thing of grades, that it kind of annoys me, because these people are you know, it's a thing that the unions used to break up any disputes, was promote a few people into managerial positions, and then you'll break up a possible strike. You know,
Absolutely. I saw people being exactly, and that was just like the nurses' strike.
yeah,
They had the thing, they had a momentum, and then suddenly, bang, it was gone.
it was gone, is right, yeah. And they'll create a few managerial positions. You know, you have bed managers, you have pillow managers, you know, and you give them a few bob extra, and that breaks up the whole thing. You know, it's crazy.
Well, you won't get no argument from me on that respect anyway, Ken.
Yeah.
But also, you were involved in some charity work as well, you know, for your activity
Yeah,
around
well, you see,
some
like,
causes.
yeah, well, look, like a lot of other people that, you know, when I retired, I knew that there was a lot of people in trouble with their mortgages and that, and I used to go to the courts. And I was in court in Limerick as well. I was in court in Ennis as well, and I was asked to leave his courtroom, as he said, by County Registrar Mr. Pat Wallace down there. He demanded that I leave his courtroom because you know, I stood up and I said that, as far as I was concerned, what was happening in the courtroom wasn't giving people due process. Um, but I saw all of that going on. I saw the absolute desperation that many people were in, and
Yeah,
their stories weren't being listened to. And it was from attending these courts in Tullamore and Portlaoise and all over the country, that I discovered there were people actually going without food in order to try and pay every cent that they could to these banks that we were all forced to bail out.
yeah,
And their families were going without food as well. But it was one particular case um, where I'd always approach somebody and ask them how they were, and you know, that I was there for them, and I put my hand on their shoulder, and it's only when I do that that you'd see somebody breaking down. But I spoke to one woman one day, and she was with her sister in Tullamore Court, and she was just there to give the keys of her home back. She wasn't going to fight for her home. Her husband wasn't in the court, even though they were married, and they weren't separated, but he just was terrified of the whole process, like many people are. And they were there to hand the keys of their home back. I could not talk what I would regard sense into her in fighting for their home. Um, she was just, it was like talking to an empty shell. You could see how much pressure and strain she was under, and probably under that strain for maybe a year, maybe a couple of years.
yeah,
But I asked, where are you going to live? And along with their teenage daughter, they were going to live in their car. And I eventually found those people about a month later living in their car. And then I found two other families living in cars in more or less the same place. And then I found three families living in tents as well, in around the same location. Now, none of those people wanted me to know that they were there, but I had to go looking for them. And I didn't know where they went afterwards, because feelings of pride and embarrassment and wrongful feelings of shame cause people to go underground. They don't want family members or friends or neighbors or relations thinking badly of them, or that they're
yeah.
failures in some way. And that's the way people are made to feel. And that helps to hide the whole thing. Because, you know, if there isn't a crisis out there, well, then why should it be solved? You know, you don't solve a crisis that doesn't exist. But then I found that particular family as well, to make a long story short, I found that they were actually going to Dublin, getting on a train and not paying on the train. If they were put off the train, they'd get back on the train, we'll say in the likes of Newbridge, and just make their way to Dublin to get something to eat. So we went up to see what was happening in Dublin. We went up to a group called You're Not Alone, run by a man called Mick Maher and his wife, Phil Maher. And there's some great people in, and there's many different groups. Like I could name several different groups
Yes,
there. But
absolutely.
but on the first occasion we met them, I think it was because they clicked these people through as they queue up for food. And it was outside the old central bank building on Dame Street. And there was 195 people went through that night. So we went up the following week. Now, the first three people, now it is probably pure coincidence because I spoke to a lot of people, but the first three people I spoke to, they happened to be from Offaly. And, they from different areas of Offaly.
Yeah.
And so we went up again the following week, not believing what we were after seeing, because we never saw anything like this on the news or heard anything about this or never read anything on the newspapers. The only place we ever heard of something like this was via Facebook and social media. So we went up the following week as well and discovered that there was almost 250 people the following week. But we were told then to go down if we wanted to see what was happening on O'Connell Street. And we went down to O'Connell Street and there was up to 400 people queuing there close to the GPO for food. Small children as well, and babies in the arms of their parents. And this was something that was, I just could not believe we were saying this. And there was people from rural Ireland there. So we decided then, eventually, there are so many people who can't make their way to Dublin or the larger centres for food. We'll go and look for them. And that's what we did in December 16. We decided to come back and via Facebook and social media, we put it out there that we were going to try to find people and that people could contact me in total confidentiality, which they did. We started off with maybe a handful of families. And by the end of that year, we had maybe 15 families that we were able to get supplies of food to. So then we had to look for help as well, because we needed help in with getting food supplies, and but people were very were great with that. We were able to get enough donations of food to get to those 15 or 20 families, but that from that time until now has grown to our latest number is 806 families that is on our list. Again, it's total confidentiality we work on. I am the only person that knows who these people are. But there is one other lady that has access to that list, if need be, just in case the good man above decides that I'm no longer fit for purpose down here. It would be wrong of me to take that list of families with me, and we can't let those people down. But that's where we are right now with 806 families. I visit approximately 20 families, well, we'd say 15 to 20 families every single day. Since COVID-19 started, I try to avoid as much as possible, and I do manage to succeed that I don't meet people, because I start my deliveries at 5 o'clock every morning, and I try to be finished before 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at the latest. So I just deliver and leave the bag outside their homes. So that's exactly where we are today with the food poverty.
Yeah, and Ken, just to echo what you're saying, that two of us went up one day from Limerick to see the setup that the Capuchin brothers doing there in Dublin, and I was gobsmacked.
Yeah.
At the length of the people lining up to get food, hot food. Yeah. And of course, I come from Cork, and we have a tradition of Cork, as you know, the penny dinners are the thing in Cork, and they've been feeding the poor in Cork for 30 or 40 years, but there's 3 or 4 of them dotted around the city now. Yeah. And I don't know, it's hidden. It's hidden from people.
It's extremely hidden, Pat.
And I believe it's hidden on purpose. And I think it's a shameful carry on by the media in general that it's not highlighted every single week in our national newspapers and our public service.
That's a battle I've been fighting all of the time to try and get this. We need to create public awareness of this crisis, because if people don't know about this crisis, well, then it's never going to be spoken about and it's not going to be solved. Officially there's no problem. But the figures I work on, I used to work on, were from research that was done in 2013 by 2 trade unions, Mandate and Unite, and they carried out research into food poverty in Ireland. And they said that on this island, which includes the 6 counties in the north of Ireland, that there are 600,000 people that don't have enough food to eat every day. And they gave the different, I often post it on my page because I just need to get this information out there. And it breaks it down into the different counties, how many people are going without food on a regular basis. But I was contacted then last year by a man called Glenn Carraher. He's the grandson of a former Minister for Health, Dr. Noel Brown. And Glenn Carraher was involved in research in NUIG in late 2018. And he said to me, Ken, your figure of 600,000 is wrong. The figure that we have come up with is over in excess of 750,000 people that don't have enough food to eat. Now, that was in December 18. Now, that's 750,000. More than half of that number are children. Now, I don't care what mommy or daddy does. I don't care whether they go to the pub, whether they're smoking weed. I don't care what they're doing. I will never give money to a family. I will never give vouchers to a family because I do know of charitable vouchers being sold at a fraction of their price and the proceeds being used for different things.
Yeah.
I will always bring food to families. And it means that mommy or daddy can do what they like, but there will always be food in the press for the kids.
That's a good principle, yeah. That's a good principle, yeah.
But one of the things, you know, I was asked by the rehab group in Offaly, did I think that a food bank would work here? And I just said immediately no, because in rural Ireland, in smaller locations, people will not queue up for food. They won't be seen going into a food kitchen or a soup kitchen or whatever you might call it. And that's why we actually get to families in their own homes, sometimes late at night because, you know, of embarrassment and them not wanting neighbours to see. And I've managed to get, you know, another brilliant group of people involved doing the same thing, and they're called the East Cork Food Appeal. A lady called Alicia Kelly, she's involved, and a young councillor down in Cork as well, Danielle. God, I can't think of Danielle's second name now. I'll be kicking myself now in a minute, but they're involved in that as well. Danielle Toomey, sorry.
East Cork Food Alliance.
It's the East Cork Food Appeal.
Food Appeal,
and they operate out of Middleton.
Yeah.
And they're a fantastic group of people. But something like this will have to be formed in every single county. Now, we've been trying. It takes huge commitment. You know, even though I'm saying that we need to have something like this, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody because it's a full-time commitment. You have to stay with it. And other food appeals similar have opened in different places and they have closed down again because of the commitment that's needed. Because people just, you know, people volunteer for different reasons and then those volunteers just drift off into something else. And it's almost impossible to keep people with you, especially with something like this, you know.
Now, and of course, that's an ongoing issue and will be an ongoing issue because, as you said, food poverty is one of the hidden things, and it shouldn't be, but it's one of the hidden things we have.
It's criminal as far as I'm concerned, Pat.
Absolutely. And now, Ken, so eventually then you decided to run for public office, so to speak, and you ran in the last local elections in Tullamore and County Offaly. How did you find yourself, apart from anything else, going around canvassing? What kind of a challenge was that for you?
The only challenge that there was, look, we had a small team of people, but they were brilliant people. And they have stuck with me through thick and thin over the last number of years. And they would basically be, most of those, all of them really would have been involved in some way or other with the food appeal that we have, because we have a number of different family rescue teams, as we call them, in different areas of the Midlands counties. And, you know, when I did say that I was going for election, of course, I had many people saying that, oh, you're only doing this, you're only getting food to people in order to get elected. Well, my answer to that would be, I actually get food to people in counties Roscommon and in Longford and Westmeath and
they won't be able to vote for you.
They can never vote for me, you know. And the people that I visit to, I never speak about politics. I've never spoken to them. People would even say, people that I visit now in different places would even say, Ken, why don't you go for election? I never speak about politics to them. You know, they don't realize that I did go for election and that I did get elected as a county councillor. But no, the one problem we found was that we simply couldn't cover all of the area, the Tullamore municipal district itself, because we had such a small team of people and because of time constraints, because I simply wasn't going to leave families without food that were on my list simply because I wanted to get elected, you know. A lot of people knew what I was doing anyway, and thankfully, that's
And
where we are right now.
did you get coverage in the local radio? Were you interviewed?
I have to say that the Midlands 103 have always treated me well. But the local newspapers, we have a local newspaper, I would call it the Establishment Tribune, or the Fine Gael Fianna Fáil Tribune,
What is
because
it? Is it the Midlands Tribune, is it?
no, it would be the Tullamore Tribune.
Tullamore Tribune.
Yeah, and they sent around reporters, journalists, with some of the other candidates when they were knocking on the doors, and would report on that the following week. But I'm still waiting for them to contact me to come around with us. They simply didn't want to know, because they hate hearing about food poverty. It's a local newspaper, and not once, the only time they've ever mentioned it is when they're trying to basically be nasty towards me about this thing. I was called a self-styled food poverty campaigner,
right,
after being elected. And that's really the only time they've ever mentioned food
that's
poverty.
good, of course. When they're calling you names, it means they're worried.
Yeah, well, look, I used to be worried about, but I don't give a damn about them now.
Yeah, and you get the same, Ken. Of course, you probably realise that yourself. I don't have to tell you. A lot of local newspapers are the same. I know in County Clare, where I live now, there's it is the same. You don't hear anything outside what we call the mainstream parties,
No,
no voice.
They're all compromised. Yeah, they're compromised by their connections to these political parties.
And that's it.
Then they rely on advertising revenue as well from these political parties.
Yeah.
And they rely on the government, because the more good news stories they can spin out there, well, the better they'll look in the government's eyes, The last thing you do is tell the truth in the newspaper. The only place you find the truth is in social media.
So your small team are tired, and the campaign is over, and you're at the count centre, and you're anxious like everybody else. When did it dawn on you that you have a chance, or how did it go?
I think on the first evening, it was when the reports, because I wasn't at the count centre on the first day, because I was out again delivering food. Even though the election was over, I was out delivering food, and I'd come back for a cup of coffee, and I'd sit down, and I'd look at social, I'd turn on the laptop, and I'd look at the updates from another local newspaper. Now, the Offaly Independent, I have to say, I can't say anything wrong about the Offaly Independent. They've always treated me well too. It's just that other newspaper who have, God, they're just goddamn awful, But when I saw the figures coming in there, I said, Jesus, this is almost looking too well. This is looking too good, because I was told that, yes, you could be fighting for the last seat. But then when I saw that it looked as though I was going to be fighting for seat number 4 or 5. I just thought, Jesus, this is looking well. So at the end of that night, before counting was finished for the night, it looked as though, unless something drastically bad happened the following morning, that it was looking good, so it did stay that way, and I was elected 5th of the 7 seats, and I came before one of our Fianna Fáil councillors as well, which was a little feather in my cap too,
That's always good, is it?
Yeah. He was a sitting councillor, and look, I will admit to anybody, I was one of these sheep that used to always support and vote for Fianna Fáil, until what happened in 2008, 2010 with this bank bailout, and when every person in the country was affected, with taxes being raised, with different levies and charges being imposed on all of us, and that sent so many people into mortgage distress, and sadly it has led to too many people, and still is leading people to cemeteries,
Well, the suicide rates, and I don't have to remind you, Ken, we were talking about it in another program the other night, particularly, and I come from a rural country as well, the countryside. It's the hidden killer that is not spoken about today, and it's awful.
Exactly. Oh, look, when two very good friends of mine took their own lives because they were in this situation, and then I was sent a photograph of the young child of one of those people sitting on his daddy's grave, and that it's just awful, Pat. It's just,
Yeah.
and it still is awful, and that's a number of years ago. And I know that there are children going to their parents' graves. It is mostly the father's graves. You know that they can't take the pressure or
Oh,
strain,
I know.
and
I
there's
know.
so much mental health stress out there being experienced by women and by men. And then we have so many women out there, and women in particular, who are choosing one particular day a week, or maybe 2 days a week, not to eat anything so they can feed their children. So these bloody banks that we're forced to bail out, you know, and they're in making massive profits again, won't pay tax again for the next 20 years, and possibly never again, depending on how they fiddle their books. You know, it's criminal, it's wrong. It's corruption at the highest level, and it's still happening. It's just something that
Hmm.
really galls me every day.
And now, as we as just as we're on politics, and we're looking now at are we looking at the slow foxtrot between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and the Greens? How do you think that pan out?
It's hard to know, Pat. Like, you know, these people, you could believe nothing that any of them say. You look at the likes of Micheál Martin, what he was saying there before the election. You know, they could never contemplate going into a coalition. You know, this grand coalition. He was making
Yeah.
a joke of it. This grand coalition with Fine Gael, that was never going to happen. He said that people had enough of Fine Gael. They were in government for too long. But all of a sudden now we see they're best buddies. And now he's talking about two dynamic parties joining up. You know, this is all dreamland stuff. And it's only a matter of time before we hear the old statement or the old phrase, in the best interests of the country. You know, we hear about that every 4 or 5 years, in
Oh,
the
we
best
do.
interest of the country. And
Yeah.
then as far as the Green Party, you know, look, they're the anti-rural party. They seem to be totally removed from reality. And anything that they've ever done, we said the last time they were in government, taxes will rise, taxes will rise. You know, in the Midlands counties, and in particular in Offaly and maybe Longford as well, there's so many thousands of jobs going to be lost because the power stations are closing. You know, we had this so-called just transition period, which was spoken of before the election. It was to last until 2030, when we would make the transformation into cleaner energy. But all of a sudden, that is now being done this year. This has to take place this year. All of these jobs has to be lost by next year. And we are, you know, we have the Green Party talking about people in rural Ireland don't need cars. We should all buy bicycles. We should sow lettuce. It's all dreamland stuff.
Yeah.
And if there is another election, there
Do you,
surely
do you,
going.
do you actually, that brings us on, do you think there will be another election?
I can't see how these parties will actually agree to form a government. The Green Party will put both of the others under so much pressure. Um, Fine Gael supporters and Fianna Fáil supporters will have to go back, or sorry, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil will have to go back to their supporters to get such a deal ratified. I I can't see people agreeing to this, because this is going to be, whatever about Fine Gael, because this COVID-19 thing has in some way boosted their popularity, even though I don't see why it hasn't justifiably boosted it. But Fianna Fáil are a dead party. You know, I thought they'd come back after the
No.
2011 election. I thought 2016, Jesus, they didn't come back then. And we all thought that in 2020, well, this is when Fianna Fáil, they're dying, and they don't seem to see it. They have a leader who should be gone 4 years ago. Um, they're just a nothing party now. And if there is another election, Fianna Fáil will be the ones to suffer. They will be decimated. And that might not be a bad thing, even though I am
Oh,
going against
I
everything.
think that I think what you're saying, a lot of people would agree with you, because they don't have anything to offer to the new generation and even to our generation, old fogies like myself,
No,
anymore, because
no,
we've heard it so many times that we don't believe it anymore. I think
no.
the credibility is gone from them. So
No
you
matter,
think,
yeah, no matter what they say, it's always at the end of the day, it's always well in the best interest of the country. We have completely changed our minds. We're breaking every promise that we've made, but it's all in the best interest of the country. It's the old joke.
yeah. So looking forward yourself where you are on the council, well, you're there now for 5 years anyway. So
Yeah, well, no, I did put myself forward as a
yeah,
candidate in the recent general election as well, and I did get 2,600 and whatever votes,
yeah,
2011. But I didn't even knock on one door. I was not going to knock on doors. I said that at the time, yes, because I was asked would I go forward, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this, but I did not. We did not canvass at all. We resurrected a few of the old election posters and put them back up again, and they fell apart completely when they were on the posters because they were poor quality and they were cheap. And
yeah.
I spent a full €190 on my election campaign. So I think to get 2,600.
And of course, we got you. You got the usual suspects elected.
Look, yeah, it's the usual suspects is right. But look, you look. I always say that if you want to pick somebody good to vote for, look at their CV. What have they done in life? Even if it's a new candidate, what has that new candidate done? Um, how have they put themselves out there? What have they done for their local communities? Why pick Joe Soap, who makes every kind of a promise under the sun? If Joe Soap has done nothing previously to do anything for anybody,
Yeah.
look at what they've done. Look at what they've done in their previous professions, and that's where the basis should come.
And before we close out this edition, Ken, you obviously are sitting in the chamber at these meetings. How did you find the adjustment of sitting, particularly because I've been at a good few council meetings myself as an observer, both in Cork and in Limerick. How do you find the way business is conducted at these meetings?
Well, first of all, my first day at the council, there was people chosen for different roles and different committees, and it was a jobs for the boys and girls thing that I totally objected to, and I said it as much. I will always say it as I see it, Pat. That might
Well, that's
often go
honest.
against. Yep, it will always go against me in a way because the old fogies and their supporters will go against me for saying it. But I will always say it as I see it. As far as I'm concerned, I don't work for Offaly County Council. I work for the people that
That put
elected
you
me.
there. Yeah.
And not only do I work for the people that elect, I work for the people of the Tullamore Municipal District, first of all, but I work for the people of Offaly, second of all. And
And sorry for cutting across you. Did you
yeah,
get on? Did you get on any of the committees?
I'm on several of these committees now. Some of these committees are, they need radical transformation. It's, one thing that I hate is meetings for the sake of meetings.
Yeah.
If we have a meeting, I want to see results. I want to see something positive happening.
Targets set and
Yeah,
trying to achieve them.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's no point in having a meeting once every 3 months and then saying, well, our next meeting is in such a date in September. And you're wondering, what was that bloody meeting about? What was achieved in that meeting? Where are we going forward with it? But a lot of these meetings, it obviously has gone on for years and years. And it's just, you sit on a thing. Look, county councillors don't have enough power at all. One of the big things that I really have a problem with is housing and how people are housed and why
Yeah.
they're housed.
Yeah.
And it's decided by council officials, and I totally disagree with that because nobody knows how these decisions are made. County councillors are the people on the street
Well, they're the
every
people's
day.
representative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they know how people are living. They know which people deserve housing before another person. When you see, we'll say, a single person with maybe one child moving into a 4-bedroom council house, you're wondering what's happening here. But those kinds of things are happening, Pat. And
They're happening locally all over the country.
yeah, and it shouldn't be happening. And it's because of who you know, not what your needs are and what your
Yeah.
individual family's needs are. And
Yeah.
we have to act fairly. We have to bring honesty back into Irish politics. And
No,
it's
I
going to be a long
can't.
road.
I can't let you go without asking you an obvious question. I know you probably didn't think of it, But we, the man with the claret jug, did that bring up a fierce sense of pride and excitement to the county?
Ah, of course it did. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I will never forget the day that I was sitting on the green, a lovely sunny day in Clara, and he was there. It was absolutely wonderful. It was like Offaly winning the All Ireland again, because we're a small county, and
Yeah,
we're a very proud people, and we're proud to be called the faithful county. And but yeah, it's a sense of, and one thing that I will always say in my time as a member of a Garda Síochána, I met many people, and I do remember a number of them saying that we haven't met anyone bad from Offaly. Everyone that we've met from Offaly has been sound. And I find that the people of Offaly are more than friendly. You come into the pub now, you can't come in now, but if you walk into a pub anywhere in Offaly, you won't be sitting there for long until somebody goes over and asks you, well, how are you doing, or where are you from? Or they'll always want to bring you into a conversation. We're an open, honest people, and we're all very proud. And we're proud of the likes of Shane Lowry and
yeah.
everything.
And I know, and people say, is he as nice as he came across? Because I only had myself and my son and my grandson were at the Irish Open in Lahinch,
Yeah,
where Shane was playing. And you don't bother people during the round. You know what I mean? There's etiquette to be observed. But we were standing, the three of us together, and he was waiting for his shot. He's shot onto the green, and he came over. He came over to the wall, and my grandson Dylan, and he was chatting to us away very casually. And
yeah,
I said, we were even afraid to have an exchange of words because of the other players. He said, people get too excited. It's just another sport.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And we met him. We got words with him after the round. But I thought his demeanour that day was fantastic. There
yeah.
was no airs and graces about him. He had a great talent, a fantastic talent. And I would say it doesn't matter where you're from. He represented his family and his county and his sport in a fantastic manner.
Yeah, exactly. And you say he went over to EPAT. I've something written. I'm just looking at it here now, and it's written up on my computer desk here, and it just says, "Give people the respect they deserve, and they will respond." And that's about the size of it. That's the way I operate, and that's the way I will always operate.
Well, Ken, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today on LíR Confidential on LíRmedia.tv. And of course, now that we've broken the ice with each other, we will tune into you more regularly and get some updates and the fantastic work that you and your small team are doing around the Midlands and elsewhere as well, with helping people in their most, I suppose, critical time in their lives. It's well known. There's no doubt about that. It's well known. Your name is well known for all the right reasons around the place, Ken. And thank you very much for appearing on LíRmedia.tv, and tell all your friends about us.
I certainly will.
And from this edition, till we meet again, goodbye and God
Thank you
bless.
very much, Pat.